Now, for the purposes of this tutorial, we are just about finished here. I don't think we're going to go a whole lot further. I just wanted to do a couple more cosmetic details just to finalize this a little bit so it looks a little bit nicer before we let it go. Now, I'm going to jump into, first of all, this housing right here. Let's open up that housing and take a look at it. First of all, something looks funny here, right? Why is this up here? It should be an offset of that. Something strange is going on, and it must have to do with this surface here. There's something weird having to do with the shell operation in this part. So if I edit my shelling operation that we used to hollow out the inside of this, what I found through experimentation is that this seems to be some kind of bug or some kind of problem with the way that the shell is being calculated. At 2 millimeters wall thickness, for me anyway, it's not working. At 3 millimeters it works, and at 1.5 millimeters it works, and for some reason at 2 it doesn't. I'm going to set it to 3, but you can imagine that if you're working in a production environment, sometimes shelling operations fail. That's a really common problem to run into, and you have to find ways of getting around that. And sometimes you don't have the option of being able to just change the wall thickness willy-nilly. I mean, that's usually defined by manufacturing. So that said, you may have to deal with that in the future. Just something to think about. Now, the details I want to add here are thus. First, I want to add that penny groove back in the middle, and I want to add a penny groove around the bottom edge here as well. Now, I don't have enough material here in order to do both. Right? This isn't quite thick enough. So we're going to have to go back to our master model and make a change in order to have enough space to accommodate both penny grooves. So we'll get our approval from industrial design to open up that ID master model. And to do that quickly, I'll just right-click on the ID master model import feature and go down to edit in context. That'll open up that part for me so I can see it here. And what we need to do is find the battery split sketch. Edit that sketch. I'm going to look straight on at it. Select these 2 points and just move them down a little bit. I'll move this one down just like so, and then most importantly move this one down so that we have just a little bit more purchase right up here from which to add our, or cut away, I should say, our material. Now when I hit OK, once again it's going to have to rebuild everything, which will take a minute, but man, is it worth it. All right, so now we've got a little bit more space there to work with, and we can add our grooves. And those are actually going to be straightforward. One of them you already know how to do. That's this bottom one. And the top one I'm going to do in a slightly different way. Last time we did an extrude cut to create our penny groove on the top. This time I'm going to use a different feature designed specifically for this purpose. It's called Insert, Fastening Features, Lip/Groove. I'll select this entire body because that's the part that we want to cut our groove into. And then I'll select right here, I need to select what's essentially a direction for our cut. And for that matter, I can just choose this top face because I'm cutting down from the top. And I need to select both a surface and an edge. So I'm going to select this surface here and this edge, this outside edge. It's going to run that automatically all the way around my surface. And then down here at the bottom, I can set very intuitively the dimensions for my cut. And in this case, I want it to be 0.5 millimeter deep. That's correct. 3 degrees draft is excessive. We can do 1 degree draft. That's fine. And then in the depth, we'll set that to 0.75 millimeters. And that's going to set that so it's not quite so deep. Hit OK. And that's going to cut my groove for me. And the nice thing about doing it that way is that even if this weren't a flat connection point, even if this were jogged or something, it would still work. Now, this bottom one we're going to have to do the more complicated way because it comes down vertically like this. This, for reasons I won't get into right now, won't work. You can try it on your own if you want to. But I'm going to do it the same way we did earlier. And that is to run around my chamfer around this edge, and it's going to be a very small chamfer, 0.2 millimeter chamfer, let's say. We'll go all the way around, and then go to my right plane, create a sketch, create a rectangle that's going to represent my cut. I can set some dimensions here. Let's set this inner dimension to be 0.5 millimeter, so it's 0.5 millimeter deep. And then I'll set this dimension to the top to be, once again, 3/4 of a millimeter, same as on the other side. Then I'm going to do my features. And I can't do my swept cut until I exit the sketch. There we go. Now I can do my swept cut using that rectangle as my profile. And then for the path, remember, we have to choose using the selection manager. So I right-click, selection manager, choose any one of these curves, and then click the little button to propagate that around the tangency of my selection. And it looks like it's not working in this case. My tangency might not be perfect. I'm clicking the buttons and it's not doing it. So I may have to go back through and manually select those edges. Fortunately, there aren't a whole lot of them. So I'll just go through and do that real quickly. And finally, I'll click OK there. And under Options, we're going to do not Follow Path, but Follow Path and First Guide Curve. And under Guide Curves, we need to select that second set of curves. So I'll right-click, Selection Manager, and propagate that tangency all the way around. Works this time, looks good. Hit OK, exit the feature, and we have our penny grooves on both sides. We can close up this document, go back to our main assembly, and just for cosmetic reasons, let's open up our materials. I'm going to add that matte rubber to this entire part. And here we go, folks. We now have a completed remote control for our Magnanimous Dan stereo system. We're going to build the speakers later on. It's going to be really, really fun. I hope you'll stay tuned and do that with us. We got lots more to learn. When we put this in section view, as you know, we've got all kinds of internals in here, all fitting beautifully. This is really great stuff. I hope you've learned a thing or two here. Let's move on to another project. Keep in touch.